America to fulfill the mission of Lord Chaitanya's advent. That is to spread the holy names all over the world. So to commemorate Srila Prabhupada's appearance in US, we celebrate world over World Holy Name Festival. So from today is the beginning for almost 1 week till 23rd. So on this event, we try to chant more and make others chant so that they can become recipient of the mercy of the holy name. So let us begin. Very few. Our online members have also become few. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Nabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. So if Srila Prabhupada would have not preached Krishna consciousness, what would have been our destiny? What would be the opportunity for us to know what is Krishna consciousness? Or there would have been no opportunity for us to practice devotional path. So we all have great indebtedness to Srila Prabhupada for showing us this path of Krishna consciousness. And also today is the celebration of the Vyas Puja of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj. So there are so many important events, but I will start with Bhagavad-Gīta. I will take one verse to continue from where we are continuing. In the second chapter, the contents of Gita summarized. And we are almost on the completion of the first part of second chapter. The absolute necessity of having a spiritual master. We see Arjuna, he is completely confused. He is checkmated. Arjuna feels if he fights and he wins, still he cannot enjoy the kingdom. Why? Because with those he can enjoy, they will be killed. So it is a complete hopeless situation for him in his life. Even if he fights and he wins, he cannot enjoy the kingdom. And if he fights and he loses in any way. So Arjuna does not see any merit in participating in this war. So similarly, we see most of the living entities, they are against war. What is the war against? War is against the time, Kala. Even if they live
Till the time they exist, till the time they do not die, they are faced with so many challenges, so many tribulations. They are always checkmated. In any case, the final blow of time in the form of Kal will be there, and their existence will be terminated. So how to make our existence meaningful is when we accept the instructions of the Supreme Lord. So Arjuna is showing a sign of a typical conditioned soul. Conditioned soul, he is very adamant. He does not accept the directions or the instructions coming from authority or superior. So we saw Arjuna, although accepting that he is confused and he cannot find solution, and he says that I surrender unto you, and please instruct me what is the ultimate benefit for me. And we saw in the 9th verse that Arjuna backtracked. What he said, he did not mean. He even did not believe in his own words. And in the 9th verse, he declares to Krishna that Krishna, I shall not fight. Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. So Krishna, in the midst of the both armies, Krishna is smiling. Arjuna is crying and Krishna is smiling. And now we see the 11th verse. So now Krishna will speak Bhagavad-Gīta, and now there will be the flow of Bhagavad-Gīta. So the real instructions of Bhagavad-Gīta will flow from this verse. Very, very important verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, verse number 11 of the 2nd chapter. Ashochayan anvashochastvam pragyavadanscha bhashase gatasuna gatasunascha nanushochanti pandita. A little tongue twister, but still very much manageable. Hear attentively. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Ashochayan anvasochastvam pragyavadamscha bhashase gatasunascha nanushochanti pandita. So I will do the word meaning because each word is very important. Whatever Krishna speaks is of paramount importance. And this is the verse which Krishna is opening up the Bhagavad-Gīta. So Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. So far where Arjuna was speaking, Vyasadeva was mentioning Arjuna Uvacha. And in the 1st chapter, who spoke the most? Who spoke the most? No. In the 1st chapter, who spoke the most? Sanjay. So Vyasadeva writes Sanjay Uvacha or Arjuna Uvacha. So there is one verse which is spoken by Dhritarashtra. But when Krishna speaks, Vyasadeva is not mentioning that Krishna Uvacha. Vyasadeva is mentioning Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said. So Shri Bhagavan is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many Bhagavans, but there is only one Supreme. This is very remarkable. There are many Ishwaras, but the chief among them is only one. That is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So now, the Supreme Personality of Godhead begins to speak. And what he says? Ashochayan. Shochayan means one, that is one who is lamenting. Shoch or shok. The word shoch comes from the word shok. Shok means to grieve or to lament. So ashochayan, like dharma, means to follow the religious path. And adharma means one who does not follow the religious path. So Sochayan means one who laments, and Ashochayan means one which is not worthy of lamentation. So Krishna is saying, Ashochayan anva shochastvam, that Arjuna, you are lamenting for which is not worth being lamented. And Pragyavadams. Vada means talk, to speak. And Pragya means something which is filled with intelligence. We say that his Pragya is developed, or he is intelligent. Medha and Pragya. Both refers for one who is very sharp, very skilled in learning. So Krishna is saying that you are speaking as if you are very learned. Pragya vadamscha bhashase. You are speaking as if you are very learned, you are very knowledgeable, you are very educated, you are very experienced. But look at what you are speaking and why you are speaking. You are lamenting for which is not worth lamenting. That means whatever you are speaking is worthless, is useless. Then he says, Gata soon agata soonascha. So gata means lost and asoon means the life. So one should not lament. What Krishna is giving the first knowledge in Bhagavad-Gīta. The first step in learning of Bhagavad-Gīta is that however difficult would be the situation in life, what is the difficulty? For 1 to the 10,000 part of the tip of the soul, is there anything difficult? For one who is so minuscule, insignificant, where is the difficulty? The difficulty is only in the imagination and our wrong identity. We surmount ourselves, we load ourselves as if because we have misidentity. So Krishna is saying that one should not lament, neither for the living nor for the dead. So Krishna says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, why speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of belief. Those who are wise, Arjuna, they lament neither for the living nor for the dead. So this is the first learning or first instruction of Bhagavad-Gīta. This theme is there throughout Bhagavad-Gīta. Krishna says, do not lament. Do not be grief-stricken. Do not be overwhelmed by the situation that you are faced in life. So those who are learned, they are not caught in this quagmire of favorable and unfavorable situation. So Srila Prabhupada says in his purport that the Lord at once took the position of a teacher and chastised the student, calling him indirectly a fool. Krishna, see how subtle Krishna speaks Bhagavad-Gīta and how he corrects, because Arjuna has already taken the position of a student. In the 7th verse, he said, Shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam. That I am a soul surrender unto you, and please instruct me. So this is the first instruction which flows in Bhagavad-Gīta from Sri Krishna, is that we should not lament. And we should not be grief-stricken. Because this is the sign of one who is not wise, one who is not learned. So Arjuna is being corrected. Arjuna is being chastised. And how Krishna is chastising him? Krishna is directly not calling him a fool. He is indirectly calling him that you are a fool. You talk too much, but you do not know what is worth doing, what is worth valuing, and what is useless. So unless until chastisement is there in our life, there cannot be any learning. So Bhagavad-Gīta starts the learning from chastisement. So those who are fortunate, those who can accept chastisement for their own benefit, can learn from Bhagavad-Gīta. Others whose ego is very inflated. Anyway, what is the force, or what is that one element which is not allowing us to accept our real identity? False ego. False ego. So this is the character of a guru or of a true spiritual teacher, that he does not inflate the false ego. He tries to pinpoint the error which is there in the student's life. And those who are not fortunate, those who are very ego-driven, egocentric, they cannot accept correction. So here Arjuna, we will see the true character of a student, that he accepts chastisement. Actually, chastisement is for our own benefit. Why? It removes the layer of false ego. Because of false ego, we cannot see the reality. So Krishna is indirectly calling him a fool. The Lord said, you are talking like a learned man, but you do not know that one who is learned, one who knows what is body and what is soul, does not lament for any stage of the body, neither in the living nor in the dead condition. So Krishna introduces the concept. Why Arjuna was lamenting? What was the reason behind Arjuna's lamentation? Because Arjuna was fearing the loss of life. Arjuna was rather saddled with this thought that if he fights and he kills, then he cannot enjoy the association of his elders. In particular, he was very much concerned about his grandfather Bhishma and Guru Drona. So Krishna will explain. So Krishna will give the first learning, is that one who is on the bodily concept of life, he will always be lamenting. So lamentation is only to the extent one is on the bodily concept. The soul is always in the state of ananda. Those who are hankering, those who are disturbed, the reason for that is there is bodily conception. And unless one is on the bodily conception, in his life, he will only face lamentations and hankerings. Atma is prasanna. Krishna will reveal that Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati. But unless and until the person comes to the realization of being a Brahma Bhuta, he remains a Jivatma. That is, Krishna says that Mana Shasthani Indriyani Prakriti Sthane Kashati. So, till the extent he is on the bodily concept, he will always in his life experience both lamentation and hankering. And he cannot be relieved from this. His birth, you see the birth of a living entity, as soon as he takes birth, he cries. And even when he dies, he also cries, and also all his family members cries. So his entire existence is in crying. He is always hankering and crying, lamenting. So this is the defect of the modern age. They're always desiring what they don't deserve. And they will be faced with such situations. So Krishna is introducing the concept of that you have to rise above Arjuna. Just do not be short-sighted. Do not confine yourself to the bodily conception. So Krishna is saying that one who knows what is body and what is soul does not lament for any stage of the body, neither in the living nor in the dead condition. Why? Because the body is temporary and the soul is eternal. As explained in the later chapter, it will be clear that knowledge means to know matter and spirit and the controller of both. So Arjuna was posing himself to be learned. But Krishna is saying that real knowledge is to be able to distinguish between matter and spirit. Why? Because matter is destructible. In any case, if Arjuna does not even fight, then still the body of Bhishma and Drona cannot be preserved. It is inevitable that the body is going to die. But the soul is eternal. So knowledge is that one who knows the difference between both matter and spirit, and very importantly, the controller of both. Both matter and spirit is controlled. So matter is what? Prakriti, and spirit is Jiva or Atma. And Prakriti and Jiva, they are not independent. Never ever they can be independent. They are under strict control. They are under the control of the Supreme, under the control of Supreme Personality of Godhead. How the Supreme controls? Through his energies, through the energy of time, which is called Kala, through the energy of modes, and through the energy of karma. So every living entity is bound within Kala, Karma, and Guna. and he cannot be released. And within this chakra, within this cycle of kala, karma, and guna, he rotates and he rots. Arjuna argued that the religious principle should be given more importance than politics or sociology. But he did not know that the knowledge of matter and soul and the supreme is even more important than religious formularies. So there are many codes. One is the social code, which we all observe. Like you are all here in IARA. So you have a code of conduct and etiquette, which all the students and even the teachers. Therein, sir, there is a social code here in IARA. Some codes are there, some code of conduct is there within the institution, within the premises, how one has to conduct himself, how one has to behave himself. What are the limitations of an individual? He's not supposed to go beyond. But when there is the emergency, then those codes are not applicable. Like there was a COVID, there was a disaster management team in force. So at that time, all these provisions or all these regulations, they were not applicable. Then the guideline which was given by the disaster management team was enforced. So similarly, for different social groups, the norms are different. What is applicable for a Kshatriya is not applicable for a Brahmana. And what is applicable for a Vaishya is not applicable for a Shudra. So depending upon the social class, the norms are there. So here what Arjuna is trying to speak, or Arjuna is trying to argue, and Prabhupada is saying Arjuna is arguing. He's trying to argue that the religious principle should be given more importance than politics or sociology. But this is for whom? For which class of men? This is for the Brahmanas. For the Brahmanas, they have to be very strictly religious because this is their order and they must comply by it. But for a Kshatriya, that is not applicable. What is applicable to a Brahmana is not applicable. So here, what Arjuna is arguing is not applicable to him. And Prabhupada is saying he did not know that knowledge of matter, soul, and supreme is even more important than religious formularies. So many times students ask, when we speak to them and we tell them that please chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So they tell us that, sir, we go to the temple, or I have a small temple in my house, and every day I go and offer pranams. I'm very religious. Since my childhood, I am doing that. Morning and evening, I go in front of the photograph which I have and I offer pranams. But that is not so important. It's good that you are doing so. But more important is to connect with the Supreme. And how do we connect with the Supreme? Is through chanting His name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But when we request them, when we suggest them to chant, they are not inclined to accept. Why? Because they are stuck with their own thoughts, with their own ideas. Why? Because here Prabhupada is giving the principle that knowledge of matters, the soul and the supreme is even more important than the religious formularies. And chanting uplifts us to come to the platform of soul. Even though we may not be conscious, we may not be attentive, like fire. Even if a child plays with fire, he is not cognizant that the fire can burn him. But even if he is not cognizant and he touches fire, what will happen? The fire will not work. It will work. So he will be impacted. So similarly, one who chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, immediately he is uplifted to the spiritual platform, to the platform of soul. So that is more important than the religious formularies. Prabhupada is using this very important word. Most of what we perform is religious formularies. It is called karma kand. And what is the intent behind performing these religious formularies is that we should get some benefits, some blessings, so that we can enjoy better in this life. Like I was studying in a Christian school. Your title says that Lenin. And seems, are you from Christian background?
Actually, this is the reason for my name is not Christianity. I was born in the centenary of Western Indian Navy. Western Indian Navy was born in the 1870s. I am born in 1970.
So your father named you Lenin.
My father likes communism and liberalism. So he gave that name.
It is out of admiration, but there is no lineage connection. Huh? So you are safe. Lenin is known as, someone who really did some very severe atrocities towards the general public. He was a dictator. Lenin was a dictator.
Actually, he liberated people from the job. Peace.
Achha. He was in Russia, no?
Yeah.
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 Okay. So he uprooted the monarchism.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So in Christian, religion, every day they pray, "Oh Lord, give us this day our daily bread." So why do they go to pray? Why do they go to the church? To get the piece of bread. If God would not provide bread, they would not go to the church and they would not offer bread. So Prabhupada said that this is not good. Anyway, even if you don't ask, God is so kind, He will provide the bread. Those who are not going to church, are they not getting bread? Definitely they are getting bread. So we should not take the Supreme Lord to be the order supplier. But when we chant, the intent behind chanting is, or the attempt or the prayer behind chanting is that, my dear Lord, please engage us in your service without any condition or without any reward or recognition. So this is what the soul is hankering for, or this is what the soul will receive satisfaction from. When he serves, you see in your own life, what is the happiest moment in your life? Just give it a thought, analyze, go down the thought process in your own life. That what was the most enjoyable moment in life? Invariably, it will be when you were able to come to the selfless platform and do good for others. On the selfish platform, only ego can be satisfied. There cannot be any joy in the heart. The heart will remain to burn. So Krishna is uplifting Arjuna, and through Arjuna, he is giving the chance to all of us, those who are students of Bhagavad-Gīta, that if we are only thinking of our own selfish interest, then we will never be able to experience any joy. And Bhagavad-Gīta is spoken to remove lamentation and to bring joy in our life. So here Srila Prabhupada is saying that the matter of soul and supreme is even more important than religious formularies. And because he was lacking in that knowledge, he should not have posed himself as a very learned man. So if we actually want to become a student or a learner of Bhagavad-Gīta, then we should accept that we do not know. We should not pose ourselves that we know a lot. Many times, so many people come across us, mainly in India. And most of them, they take a position that they know a lot. If we ask them that, have you read Bhagavad-Gita, or why don't you take a copy of Bhagavad-Gita? Yes, I know what is in Bhagavad-Gita. Particularly in India. So we ask them that, okay, tell us, please share what is the learning from Bhagavad-Gita, or what is the message from Bhagavad-Gita. And then you hear their answers. They will all speak which is not in Bhagavad-Gita, which has nothing to do with Bhagavad-Gita. Why? Because they do not know Bhagavad-Gita. It is all from hearsay. They have not received the knowledge from the right source. But because they are not keen to hear, or they are not keen to learn, they will never get any knowledge. They block the flow of knowledge. So here Prabhupada is saying, so one who is a student, that means he should always remain submissive, and he should always take a position that he does not know. And this position was shown by himself, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Guru Mora Murth Dekhiya Kari Ashashana. That my spiritual master, my teacher, saw me as a fool. And he instructed me. If somebody he thinks he is more wise, he is more learned, then what knowledge can we give to him? If the student says that he knows the subject very well, then what you will do? So good luck. We will see you in the exam. And what will be the exam? The time of one's departure. Then one will be tested. Everyone in this material world will be tested at the time of his departure. The day of departure will come or not? Well, whatever we have the arrival date, as soon as the arrival date is there, the departure date is there. As the product is there, date of production, date of expiry. It is there together. So we celebrate the birthday. But what about the D-Day? What is the preparation in life to test, to get the result right in the test of exam of death? That no one is prepared. And death can come anytime. Anytime can be the final moment. So here Krishna is teaching us through Arjuna that if somebody wants to learn this spiritual knowledge, he should not pose himself to be learned. He should pose himself as if he does not know. And the spiritual master can only impart knowledge when he takes command of the student. Till the time the student is arguing, or till the time the student defends himself, this knowledge cannot flow. This transformation will never take place. So here Prabhupada says that as he did not happen to be very learned man, he was consequently lamenting for something which was unworthy of lamentation. The body is born and is destined to be vanquished today or tomorrow. Therefore, the body is not as important as the soul. One who knows this is actually learned, and for him there is no cause of lamentation, regardless of the condition of material body. So Krishna is inspiring Arjuna, and through Arjuna, Krishna is inspiring all of us to come to the realization that we are not this body. We are beyond body. We are beyond body and we are beyond mind. And then Krishna speaks this next word. From here, we will begin the next section of the second chapter. Is that if we are not this body, then who we are? So Krishna gives the real identity, the eternal identity of the individual. And what is that? And that is the soul proper. This is the 12th verse. Krishna speaks in a very poetic way. He says, Na tu evaham jatu nasam, na chevan, na tvam neme janadhipa, na cheva na bhavishyama, sarve vayam ataparam. Never there was a time when I did not exist. So Krishna is always existing. Krishna is omnipotent, he is omnipresent, and he is omniscient. And he says, nor you. So don't think that you will die. Of course, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For him, there is no question of any death. But even for the individual living entity, there is no death. So there was never a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings. So Krishna is pointing about all the kings who are assembled on the both sides of the army. Nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So Krishna is talking about the past and he's talking about future. Needless to say, in present, everyone is there. So the individuals who are assembled here, they existed before, and even if the battle is fought, and assuming that everyone will die, which was Krishna's arrangement, their existence will not be terminated. They will still exist in future. So very important, first learning Krishna gives on the identity of the soul is that it is existing eternally. The individual's existence cannot be terminated by any stroke of time, kal, karma, or guna. It is only the body which takes birth and dies. It's a long purport. It's a big purport. And Prabhupada talks about the impersonalism. Because the impersonalism has a theory that the soul merges with the Supreme or the Brahman. But that is not possible. Krishna refutes that principle through this verse in Bhagavad-Gīta. The first learning Krishna is giving that the individuality of the soul is always maintained, whether it is in manifest state or it is in unmanifest state. What is the manifest state? When he is in the body, when he is visible. And even if he is unmanifest, his existence cannot be terminated. So Krishna is speaking about the past, when he was not manifest. And even in the future, he will be unmanifest again. And now he is manifest in this body. So the identity of the soul will always exist. It's a big relief for all of us. It should be a source of joy that we will live forever. There is no force in this existence which can terminate us. We will live forever. But what we have to do to be able to enjoy this eternal existence, we have to uplift ourselves to come to the platform of soul. Because the body is born to die. It's a harsh fact. The body is born to die. It is just a matter of time. That may be few days, few months, few years, or maybe few decades. But the soul's individuality and its existence can never be compromised or can never be checked. Prabhupada says, it's a big purport. I will not read the full purport. In the second paragraph, Prabhupada says, the Lord says clearly, look at the third line, below the verse which is given from the Kathopanishad. The Lord clearly says that he himself, Arjuna and all the kings who are assembled on the battlefield are eternally individual beings. And that the Lord is eternally the maintainer of the individual entities, both in their condition and in their liberated situation. So this is the principle which Krishna is trying to teach all of us. That both matter and spirit is, although they are, the individual soul is having its eternal existence. But under both situations, whether it is conditioned or liberated, it is not independent. Individuality is there. eternity is there, but it is not independent. This is a very important aspect. Here he is dependent. Why? Because the maintenance is done by the Supreme Lord. We saw this in times of COVID. We were forced to realize that unless and until there is the hand of the Supreme, we cannot survive. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the supreme individual person, and Arjuna, the Lord, the eternal associate, and all the kings assembled there are individual eternal persons. So this is the first principle, that we are all individual and we are eternal. But neither being individual or eternal does not bring us to a situation to become independent. We are under the control of the Supreme. It is not that they did not exist as individuals in the past, and it is not that they will not remain eternal persons. Their individuality existed in the past, and their individuality will continue in the future without interruption. Therefore, there is no cause for lamentation for anyone. So why one should lament? Only those who have not realized their true identity, they are lamenting. And Prabhupada condemns the impersonal theory that after liberation, the individual soul, separated by the covering of Maya or illusion, will merge into the impersonal Brahman and lose its individual existence, is not supported herein by Lord Krishna. So that conception of liberation, or it is called mukti. So there is nothing, that this conception of mukti is false. There is a true conception of mukti also, which Srimad Bhagavatam explains. What is the true conception of mukti? That one gives up the false identity. When one gives up the false identity and false designations, mukti hitva anyatha rupam swarupena vyavasthiti. When one is situated in his right, a constitutional position, then one is liberated. But there is no such thing that we will be liberated when our soul merges in the Supreme Soul, or it merges in the Brahman effulgence. There's no such thing. Because if that was there, then this conception, the principle which Krishna is speaking, cannot hold valid. Does it make sense? Then one cannot be that they could not exist in the past, or they could not exist in the future. Because if one merges, then where is the existence? One will lose the existence. So the soul cannot be merged. That Krishna will explain. That the soul cannot be cut by any weapon. It cannot be burned by fire. It cannot be withered by air. It cannot be moistened by any chemical. The existence of soul is eternal. So very important principle here, Krishna is revealing that the individuality of the soul cannot be compromised at any time. We will exist. So what is there to lament? What is the lamentation for? There is no reason to lament. And those who are lamenting means they do not know the knowledge of soul. They do not have the learning. So Krishna is giving this conception here, and Prabhupada defeats the theory of merging, that one can merge in the Brahman. That is not possible. Prabhupada says that separated by the covering of Maya or illusion, will merge into the impersonal Brahman and lose its individual existence, is not supported herein by Lord Krishna, the Supreme Authority. Nor is the theory that we only think of individuality in the conditioned state supported here. Krishna clearly says that in the future also that the individuality of the soul and others, it is confirmed in the Upanishads, will continue eternally. That is why Prabhupada quotes this verse, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. So amongst all the eternals and amongst all the individuals, there is one supreme individual. And what is that? That is the Supreme Lord. And what is so distinct about the Supreme Lord? Eko bahunam yo vidadati kama. And that one supreme individual is fulfilling the desire and demands of all the individuals. That is Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. So amongst all the conscious beings, amongst all the eternal beings, he is the supreme. And Eko bahunam yo vidadati kama. Tam atmastam ye anupashyati dhira. So who can see this? That one who has become a dhira. Dhira means one who is not disturbed. And adhira is one who is disturbed. So Arjuna is taking the position of adhira. He is disturbed. Tesham shanti shashvati netaresham. So for such a dhira, what he will experience? He will experience everlasting peace. Tesham shanti shashvati. Shashvati means eternal and shanti means peace. So unless and until one becomes a dhira, there is no possibility of experiencing peace. Ashantasya kuto sukham. Krishna will speak that later in the Bhagavad-Gīta. So Prabhupada is saying, let's look at the next page of the purport. Prabhupada hammers on this point that the Mayavadi may argue that the individuality spoken by Krishna is not spiritual but material. So even accepting the argument that the individuality is material, then how can one distinguish Krishna's individuality? Krishna affirms his individuality in the past and confirms his individuality in the future also. He has confirmed his individuality in many ways. The impersonal Brahman has been declared to be subordinate to him. Krishna has maintained spiritual individuality all along. If he is accepted as an ordinary conditioned soul in individual consciousness, then his Bhagavad-Gīta has no value as authoritative scripture. A common man with all four defects of human fallibility is unable to teach that what is worth hearing. The Gita is above such literature. No mundane book compares with the Bhagavad-Gīta. When one accepts Krishna as the ordinary man, the Gita loses all importance. The Mayavadi argue that the plurality mentioned in this verse is conventional and that it refers to the body. But previous to this verse, such a bodily conception is already condemned. After condemning the bodily conception of living entities, how was it possible for Krishna to place a conventional proposition on the body again? Therefore, individuality is maintained on spiritual ground and it is confirmed by great acharyas like Ramanujacharya and others. It is clearly mentioned in many places in the Gita that the spiritual individuality is understood by those who are devotees of the Lord. So another meaning of dhira is one who is a devotee. Dhira dhira jana priya karo nirmatsaro pujito. Vande roop sanatano raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopala. So they were liked by both the dhiras and even the adhira. Dhira dhira jana priya karo. They were respected and appreciated by both. And those who are envious of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead have no bona fide access to this great literature. So Prabhupada is mentioning here that who can begin to understand Bhagavad-Gīta? One whose approach is like a devotee. And what does a devotee means? Devotee means that he accepts the authority. He does not argue or he does not refute. And Prabhupada says further a very interesting statement. A non-devotee's approach to the teaching of the Gita is something like that of a bee licking on a bottle of honey. So Bhagavad-Gīta is compared to the bottle of honey. शहद की बोतल देखा ना आपने? You have seen a bottle of honey? Yeah. But if you lick the bottle of honey from outside, can you get the flavor of the honey? No. What you have to do? You have to uncap the bottle and then you have to taste the real thing. Then you can get a real feel of what is inside. So those who are non-devotees, those who are argumentative, those who do not accept the authority of the Supreme Lord, their approach is compared to someone who's trying to lick the bottle of the honey from outside. Then for them, Bhagavad-Gīta is very boring. Bhagavad-Gīta is very difficult. Bhagavad-Gīta is very philosophical. Bhagavad-Gīta is not practical. Why? Because they have not tasted the real thing. If somebody is licking, कोई बाहर से चाट रहा है बोतल, उसको क्या स्वाद मिलेगा? What he will see, it is distasteful. He will never be able to know the real taste, the higher taste. Bhagavad-Gīta gives us the higher taste. The Prabhupada says, one cannot have a taste of honey unless one opens the bottle. Similarly, the mysticism of Bhagavad-Gīta cannot be understood, can be understood only by the devotees. No one else can taste it, as it is stated in the 4th chapter of the book. Nor can the Gita be touched by person who envy the very existence of the Lord. Therefore, the Mayavadi explanation of the Gita is most misleading presentation of the whole truth. Lord Chaitanya has forbidden us to read commentation made by the Mayavadis and warn us that one who takes to such an understanding of the Mayavad's philosophy loses all power to understand the real mystery of Gita. So we should be very alert. We should not hear any discourse from someone who is not within the bona fide disciplic succession. Why? Because the impersonal conception which is having in his heart, what he will do? He will transplant that impersonal consumption. He will transfer that impersonal consumption even in our heart. And that is the biggest suicide. That is the spiritual suicide. When we chant Hare Krishna, we are requesting the Supreme Lord to engage us in His service. Because that is the true characteristic of the soul. The soul can only experience Ananda, bliss, when he is engaged in service, selfless service. And impersonalism means that we don't want to serve. There is no desire to serve. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has forbidden us that we should not even hear Bhagavad-Gīta. Do not make YouTube or Google to be your guru. Very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Because this impersonal conception will be more germinated in our practice. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has born. Sanatana Goswami says that Avaishnavad Mukhat Gurim Putam Hari Kathamritam Shravanam Neva Kartavyam Sarpo Chishta Yathapaya. That one should not hear even Hari Katha from those who are not in the right disciplic section, who are not devotees of the Lord. Why? Because it is like touching the milk which is touched by the serpent. Will anyone drink the milk which is touched by the serpent? No. Why? Because the poison has been added to it. And what is the poison? The poison is this impersonal conception. So Prabhupada says that Lord Chaitanya has forbidden us to read commentation made by the Mayavadis and warn us that one who takes to such understanding of the Mayavadi philosophy loses all power to understand the real mystery of Gita. If individuality refers to the empirical universe, then there is no need of teaching by the Lord. The plurality of the individual soul and the Lord is an eternal fact, and it is confirmed by the Vedas as mentioned above. So Prabhupada is quoting from the Vedas, is quoting from the Upanishads. And then Krishna will speak this very famous verse, 13th verse. But before, I want to cover a little bit of Srila Prabhupada's arrival. Very historic date, as I said. It will not be proper for us that if we do not meditate on the date and the circumstances in which Srila Prabhupada reached America to spread the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu individually, single-handedly. How many persons accompanied Srila Prabhupada on the voyage? No one. Own. But Prabhupada had tremendous faith in the words of the Supreme Lord and his spiritual master. And he had this full confidence that whatever the Supreme Lord has declared, it will come true. So in the morning, I was very fortunate to speak on Srila Prabhupada's arrival. I went to a very beautiful temple of ours. Most of you have not been. You have not seen the hidden Jaipur and Vrindavan within Delhi NCR. That is Bahadurgarh temple. You have been? Any one of you? Dolamani has been. He has been with me once. And there we spoke. So I sang this song of Markine Bhagavad Dharma. Where Srila Prabhupada is expressing his inner core of his heart and his feelings. And he's praying to Krishna that you please empower me. Prabhupada is pleading to Krishna that you have brought me so far. Just imagine a 70-year-old person who is for the first time left India. He has never traveled abroad. And after 35 days of voyage, on the sea voyage, he reaches the shores of America. And on the voyage, he has 2 massive heart attacks. How many of us would venture or adventure? But Prabhupada was never shaken. His confidence was more solid than any other impediment. And then he prays to the Supreme Lord. I will read the poem which Prabhupada on the 17th of September he composed as soon as he saw the territory of United States. So Prabhupada could very well foresee that how difficult this mission is. But Prabhupada never withdrew. Prabhupada prepared and Prabhupada prayed. So Prabhupada is giving us this lesson that what we should do, we should prepare. Prabhupada had a lifetime of preparation to accomplish this mission. But that itself is not sufficient. Only preparation on our own ability will not lead us to spiritual success. We have to depend on Krishna. And what is dependence is taught in Srila Prabhupada's prayer. This is very nicely titled. It is called Markine Bhagavad Dharma. It is there in the songbook. Markine Bhagavad Dharma. Teaching Bhagavad Dharma in America. Yeah. So on September 17, 1965, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada arrived in Boston on board the ship Jaladuta. It is very interesting how Srila Prabhupada reached America. Because Prabhupada did not have the money to pay for the ticket. A ticket for 35 days of journey will cost a lot. You remember? Air India was charging you. And you wrote to me that the money that they are asking, I cannot pay. You forgot. You were saying that you don't remember, you were in Chicago stuck. याद आ गया? नहीं याद आया. They were asking you how much? They were asking you more than 2 lakhs rupees for a return ticket. And he said, I don't have the money. I have the Pankar with me. In COVID time, he went to US to get a flavor of US. From US, people are coming to Vrindavan, but from Indians, they are so learned, they are so advanced, they want to go and taste the flavor of US. Anyway, so the ticket cost was very high and Prabhupada could not afford it. So Prabhupada got a free passage. And this was not a passenger ship. Mind you, this was not a passenger ship. This was a cargo ship. Just imagine. If you have to go from here to Calcutta and you are told that you cannot go in the passenger train, you will go in cargo train. Will you go? Will you go? Not even to Calcutta, which is say 1500 kilometers. And Prabhupada traveled how much? Maybe 15,000 kilometers. On 35 days voyage, but he was on the cargo ship. And why he was on the cargo ship? Because his cargo ship, he got the free passage, free ticket. They did not charge. The owner of this cargo ship, Srimati Sumati Murarji, she was very pious lady, and she very generously extended. I'm not discussing the song. Who has shared it? You have shared it? No need. We don't have so much of time. It will take a lot of time. If you have time, then after the class I can discuss. So here I'm just, giving the reflection of today's date. That Prabhupada arrived in Boston on the board the ship Jaladuta, carrying within his heart the orders of his spiritual master. The sole purpose and the focus of Srila Prabhupada's visit is only one. That he was carrying the instructions of his spiritual master, the orders of his spiritual master. And what was the order of his spiritual master? To spread the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu beyond the borders of India throughout the entire world. Prithvi te ache yato nagaradi gram sarvatra prachar hoibe mora naam. This is the declaration made by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the prophecy made. And at one point of time, all the Vaishnavas, including the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they had this feeling that this prophecy may not come true. In 1938, Srila Prabhupada was in Calcutta. Actually, in 1938, Prabhupada was in Mumbai, at that time Bombay. But 1938 was the year when the First World War began. And because the World War began and Prabhupada's business also was affected, so he had to come back to Calcutta. And when he was in Calcutta in 1938, he rented two buildings. One for his residence and one for his unit, for his pharmaceutical unit. 6 Sitakant Banerjee Lane and 7 Sitakant Banerjee Lane. Leelamrit mentions about it. And when Prabhupada came to Calcutta, some of his godbrothers also, came to Calcutta and requested Prabhupada that please provide us a place, a suitable place so that we can preach. And these were not ordinary godbrothers. They were sannyasis. His Holiness Sridhar Swami Maharaj, His Holiness Bhakti Sarang Maharaj, and Bhakti Puri Maharaj. Very renowned sannyasis. And what Prabhupada did, the floor above his unit, 4 rooms, Prabhupada gave it to them. And they started the Gaudiya Math. And where sannyasis are there, brahmacharis are also there. So, another of his godbrother, who was a Sanskrit scholar, he used to come and teach the brahmacharis. And one day after teaching the brahmacharis, they were coming down from the 2nd floor. And he met Abhay Babu, our Srila Prabhupada. And he said that Chaitanya Bhagavad declares this prophecy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But we have seen Bhakti Vinod Thakur come and go. We have seen Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur come and go. We don't feel that this prophecy can come true. But Srila Prabhupada told him very boldly that if Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has declared, it will invariably come true. Why? Because Prabhupada was carrying the orders of his spiritual master in his heart. A lifetime of preparation. And with this lifetime of preparation, Prabhupada entered America. As he looked upon the Boston's bleak and dirty skyline, for us it will not be the same vision. You will be mesmerized. Anyone who enters America is mesmerized. Yes or no? चमक दमक देख कर क्या हो जाता है? दीवाना हो जाता है. But what it looked to Prabhupada, he looked upon the Boston's bleak and dirty skyline. He could understand the difficulty of this sacred mission and felt great compassion for these godless people. So Prabhupada could see that how their consciousness is at a very low level. And they are all suffering due to godless civilization. So Prabhupada felt great compassion for them. Thus, with perfect humility, he composed this historic prayer in Bengali, praying for the deliverance of all the fallen souls. So whatever we are practicing today, or whatever opportunity we have to practice Krishna consciousness, is because of this prayer of Srila Prabhupada. This is the raison d'être. This is the reason for our existence in Krishna consciousness. Because if Prabhupada would have not prayed, and if Prabhupada would have not preached, what was the possibility for any one of us to become Krishna conscious or even to know Krishna consciousness? What to speak of practicing? So Prabhupada is pouring his heartfelt feelings in this prayer. So my request is, this is the homework. You go through these prayers, meditate on this prayer, and try to connect with Srila Prabhupada's feeling. These words are the expression of Srila Prabhupada's heartfelt feelings. What is his desire to accomplish the mission of his spiritual master? And what is his compassion to relieve the conditioned soul from all their sufferings? And also today is the appearance celebration of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, one of the dearmost disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Bhakti Charu Maharaj had the opportunity to meet Srila Prabhupada only in the last year of Srila Prabhupada's pastime on this planet Earth. But within a short time, within just first interaction with Srila Prabhupada, he became very intimate. And Prabhupada assigned him very personal services. The first time Bhakti Charu Maharaj had the opportunity to know about Srila Prabhupada is through his books. Bhakti Charu Maharaj was very scholarly, very learned person. He was born in 1945 in Calcutta in an aristocratic family. But for further education, he went to Germany in 1970. At that time in 1970s, very few people would be thinking of going abroad or pursuing higher learnings. And he did not go to England. That was the trend. Most of the people went to England or some went to US. But Maharaj went to Germany. And in Germany, he found many Vedic scriptures, the true text of the Vedas. And his interest and inclination was attracted by the Vedic learning. And he wanted to know more about the spirituality, so he decided to return to India. In 1975, he came back to India. And he was in search of a true teacher who could show him the path of spirituality. So he met many, like we see in the life of His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. So in the same way, he had his expedition, but he was very disappointed. For 1 year, he searched. He went to the Himalayas, he went to the Haridwar, but he could not find someone who could inspire him or incline him. And then, by his one known friend, he got a book of Srila Prabhupada, which is Nectar of Devotion. And as he started to read the book, he saw the light in his life. That what he was looking for, what he was searching for, he could find in the writings of Srila Prabhupada. And he became very keen and eager. So he took a trip from Calcutta to come to Mayapur. And in his first visit to Mayapur, he was inspired to become a resident of Mayapur. But his father called him, so he had to return back to Calcutta. And Jayapataka Swami Maharaj visited his house and recalled him back to Mayapur. And at that time, Srila Prabhupada was not in India. Prabhupada was preaching abroad in US and other places. So he waited for Srila Prabhupada to arrive, but he utilized that time. He was performing devotional service, and very interesting service which he picked up on his own, that he was searching all Srila Prabhupada's Bengali articles which were published at the time of the time when ISKCON was not established. Between 1940s and 1960, what Srila Prabhupada wrote in the Gaudiya Patrika, the Bengali articles, the spiritual articles. So he found out, you just imagine, he went from one library to another library of the Gaudiya Math, and he went from one edition to the other edition, searching for so many editions. In so many years, so many editions would have come. And he took out the Prabhupada articles, and from Bangla, he started to translate them in English. And he compiled one book called Bhagavad-Gīta Katha, which is the compilation of Srila Prabhupada's article written in Bengali in the Gaudiya Patrika. And before he met Prabhupada, he had this desire that when he meets Prabhupada, he will present this as an offering to Srila Prabhupada. But he had to wait. Prabhupada came in Mayapur, but he could not get the opportunity to meet Prabhupada. But because he was a resident of Mayapur and he was serving there, so one of the leaders in Mayapur, they promised him that when Prabhupada is there in Allahabad during the Kumbh Mela, we will travel together and I will introduce you to Prabhupada. So he is miraculously introduced to Prabhupada when they are returning. Even in the 10 days of Prabhupada's stay, he could not meet Prabhupada. In 1977, it was not easy. So anyway, when they were returning in the train, so Bhakti Charu Maharaj was first introduced to Prabhupada, and when he offered his obeisances to Prabhupada, he got up. Prabhupada immediately knew who he was, and Prabhupada told him that why don't you translate all my English books in Bengali? Prabhupada knew the heart. Prabhupada knew what service he was already doing, even after never having been met before. And by the time he stood up, Prabhupada gave this instruction. Like Prabhupada, when he offered his obeisances to Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur told him that you were a young, learned, educated young man. Why don't you preach the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the English-speaking world? So Bhakti Charu Maharaj was dumbfounded. And he said, but I do not have any practice about it. So Prabhupada said, just do it. And Bhakti Charu Maharaj accepted it. And because he was doing this translation work, he got access to Prabhupada. He would do the translation, and to show Prabhupada, to get it checked and examined by him, he was given access anytime, anywhere. This is the last year of Srila Prabhupada's appearance on this planet Earth. And because of his very submissive approach, Prabhupada gave him many services. Prabhupada asked him, can you cook for me? He did not know cooking. But he was delighted. He was overjoyed. He said, surely, Prabhupada, that will be my good fortune. He learned cooking so that he could serve Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada gave him his Bengali. Prabhupada made him the Secretary of Indian Affairs. Prabhupada was receiving so many letters throughout the years. So Prabhupada gave him the Bengali letters to reply. So he did that. Then Prabhupada gave him Hindi letters. Hindi, for a person who is Bengali and who is educated in the West, was something like Greek and Roman or Chinese for us. But Bhakti Charu Maharaj never refused. Bhakti Charu Maharaj, in his biography, Ocean of Mercy, he says that I told Prabhupada, but Prabhupada, my Hindi writing is not very good. Prabhupada said, don't worry. Then Prabhupada cracked a joke with him. He said that there were two friends, and one friend wrote the letter to the other friend in Hindi. And when the other friend received the letter from his friend, he asked his friend to give the railway fare. Ticket ka bhada do. Why? Because he wants to come to meet his friend so that he can get the letter read by him, because no one else can read. So Prabhupada encouraged him and said, don't worry. And in this way, whatever service was given to Bhakti Charu Maharaj, Bhakti Charu Maharaj grabbed it with both hands. And he became very, very close to Srila Prabhupada. And he served him in every capacity. As a secretary, as a servant, as a subordinate, as a disciple. And many times there are so many pastimes. And the greatest contribution of Srila Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj is that he translated all of Srila Prabhupada's book in Bengali, which was Prabhupada's own mother tongue. And he also made a serial on Srila Prabhupada. That is Abhay Charan. A very big serial, a very magnus opum serial. He worked for many, many years, for more than 10 years to prepare that serial. Very well made that serial. It gives the full life of Srila Prabhupada in the video form. Abhay Charan series. And then Srila Bhakti Charu Maharaj, he also constructed the temple in Ujjain, Avanti, in 10 months, just 10 months, as an offering for Srila Prabhupada. There are very many glorious contributions. And personally, I had the good fortune of individually meeting Bhakti Charu Maharaj 3 times. First time I met him in Mumbai in 2009. Because I was serving there as midday meal manager. And Bhakti Charu Maharaj was the chairman of midday meal. So we had a convention in Mumbai in our Juhu temple. And Maharaj was the chairperson. And we were giving presentations about our own respective projects. And Maharaj was very encouraging. Then I met Maharaj personally in his room also. Maharaj very much encouraged. And Maharaj had this desire that Prabhupada distribution should be on a mass scale. And then second time I had the good fortune of meeting Maharaj in Vrindavan during Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day. And one of the devotees, Sarang Thakur Prabhu, who is a disciple of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, he introduced me and told Maharaj that we have all come from Delhi to serve on Prabhupada's disappearance. So Maharaj was very overjoyed. So Maharaj, very, in his very sweet way, he told me, what can I do for you? And I asked him, Maharaj, that kindly bless me. And Maharaj, is in his all humility, he said, you have all my good wishes. And final time I met him in Gurgaon. Another disciple of his twin brothers, Atma and Anand, they are my good friends. So they hosted Maharaj for a few days in their house. And they invited me once to have audience of Maharaj. And when we were there, so Maharaj was performing Kirtan. And we sat with him. And we heard him. And he very much appreciated that we are doing both services in the temple and preaching. And he encouraged everyone to perform devotional service and to perform sadhana. And he was such a strict Prabhupada Anuga that he never celebrated his birthday or Vyas Puja. He always celebrated this day. This is the Prabhupada's day of landing in America. And he showed by his example how he lived for Prabhupada and how he left this world for preaching Prabhupada's mission. So on this day, we pray to Srila Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj. He is most merciful that he also gives us a drop of that mercy. He has the ocean of mercy. His biography says the ocean of mercy. But we are seeking a drop of mercy from that ocean of Srila Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj so that we can also be a constituent in Srila Prabhupada's mission. Thank you very much. I think I must be over time. Not much. So please, my request is, on today's day, don't let this day pass. You meditate on Srila Prabhupada's Markine Bhagavad Dharma. Please try to go through this composition and what is Srila Prabhupada's feeling and how he's praying. How with his heart he's praying and he's calling the Supreme Lord. Thank you very much. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srimad Bhagavad-Gīta ki Jai. Any question or something you want to say? from those who are live, those who are online, those who are offline.
No, Prabhuji, the number. Pranam, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. बोलिए क्या कह रहे हैं आप? You are muted also and your video is also off. Okay, I think the link is not clear. Okay, I'll stop here.